Hello everyone. Myself Kunal, and I'm your physics tutor, and we are actually doing array optics. And today is our actually lecture number third. So let me quickly recap the things कि हमने previous class में क्या क्या चीजें cover करी थी. So in previous classes we actually deal with the things like reflection due to plane mirror. जिसमें हमने 3-4 केसेस डिस्कस करी थी. पहला था ग्रेजिंग इंसिडेंट्स, दूसरा था नॉर्मल इंसिडेंट्स एंड ऑल राइट. सो ये सारी चीजें हमने कवर करी थी. दूसरी चीज हमने डिस्कस करी थी एंगल ऑफ डेविएशन, एंगल ऑफ डेविएशंस इन प्लेन मिरर. फिर हमने थर्ड थिंग्स डिस्कस करा था कि व्हाट आर द इफेक्ट on angle of incidence and angle of reflection if I rotate the angle of if I rotate the reflected ray and all, right? If I rotate the reflected ray. The fourth thing I discussed, what happened to the angle of deviation if I rotate the plane mirror. So we reached to the conclusion like two times of basically the rotation in the reflected ray or the rotation and the deviation angle changes by the 2 times of theta, which is where the theta is the angle of rotation of the plane mirror. The rotation by plane mirror. So we get like del is equal to 2 theta, right? So these are the things that we are going to discuss in our previous class. Now, in today's class, we are going to discuss about some object image, right? So let's begin our today's lecture with some kinds of definition part, which will be helpful in your future as well. So let's take some next color. Okay, so definitions part. So the first is like optical object, which we can term as object of. So basically where object is a things where intersection point of the incident ray, right? So let me write it here. The intersection point of incident ray called as the object. Intersection point of incident ray called as object. Okay. So where the basically incident ray of light intersect, so it will be termed as object. So now the intersection either will be the real intersection or will be the virtual intersection. So on the basis of the two kinds of intersection, we have actually two kinds of object. So object is of actually two kind. The first one is actually a real object and the second one is actually virtual object, right? So what is actually real object and what is actually virtual object? So let's define it here. So real object where actually the intersection point of incident ray will be real. Like if let us suppose this is our actually plane mirror and this is actually from where the ray of light originated. So look at here. This is actually our real object because here actually this is the intersection point of the incident ray, right? So this is actually termed as a real object, right? And if I'm talking about the nature of rays in a real object, obviously, so it will be like for incident, it will be like divergent because the ray of light diverge, right? So it will be like divergent. Now, if I'm talking about the second types of object, which is actually virtual object, so in which actually the ray of light, ray of incident light has a virtual intersecting point. So what I'm trying to say, if this is actually our plane mirror and there is the object behind the plane mirror, Okay, let me erase it and make it in a clear way. Okay, and so this is actually our object because this is the point where the incident ray of light intersect, right? So this is called as the object where the basically the point where the incident ray of light intersect. So this is actually the point where incident ray of light intersect. In this case, actually our the nature of rays incident is actually convergent. Okay, I hope these things were clear to all of you. So let me recall once again. So what is actually optical object? So the optical object is basically intersecting point of the incident ray of light. Okay, and we have actually two kinds of object. The first one is real object, and the second one is actually virtual object. Now, what is actually real object? So a real object is the actually intersection point of the uh, incident ray of light, which actually is real, right? The point of intersection is real. And the nature of incident rays is actually divergent. You clearly see actually ray of light is diverges from the intersection point. And the next is like virtual object. So what is actually virtual object? So in which the intersection point is actually virtual. Okay. So in which the intersection point is virtual. So you can call it as the virtual object. And in this case, the nature of incident ray is actually convergent. So I hope it will be clear to all of you about the concept about the object. Now we are gonna discuss about the optical images. So the next thing is actually our optical images. So what is actually optical image, or in general we can call it as image only, right? So what is actually image? So the intersection point of the reflected ray is actually called as optical image. So let me write it here. It is actually its definitions, right? Intersection point of reflected ray, or if you can say refracted ray, is termed as optical image, right? So basically where the reflected ray of light intersect, so that point will be called as uh, optical images. So let's take some example here so that it will be clear to all of you. So obviously, as a object is of two kind, so image is also as of two kind. So one image is termed as a real image and other is termed as virtual image. So similarly, real image in which the intersection point of the reflected ray is actually real, and in virtual image, the intersection point of reflected ray or the refracted ray is actually virtual. So let's take a look about the real image. So let us assume this is actually our plane mirror, and there is some object from where the ray of light is actually incident, and there is some another ray of light which is actually incident there. So after reflection, it actually you you can call it as it's actually going in the direction. So this is actually the intersection point of the I can make it in a clear way. So let me make it or draw it again. So it will be okay. So let's take this is actually the incident ray of light, and let's take another incident of light which is actually parallel to this one. Now what I'm trying to say, there is somewhere it intersect, right? So this is where the ray of light is, where the reflected ray of light intersect each other is actually termed as a real image, right? And in this, actually, the nature of reflected light is actually convergent. Now let's talk about the virtual image. So in virtual image, like let's take the example here. So this is actually our plane mirror, and there is actually we have a real object, and we are actually these are some incident ray of light, right? So after reflection uh, from plane mirror by obeying the laws of reflection, it goes like this. But here, like if you can uh, look at here, so there is no real intersecting point of the reflected ray because two of the rays are actually diverges from each other, right? So when you extended the both of the ray in backward, so there is actually a virtual meet here. This is actually our object, and this is our actually virtual image, VI. You can term as virtual image. So when you backward extend the both of the reflected ray, so you find there is actually a intersection point of the reflected ray, which is actually form of virtual image. Now, if I talk about the nature of the reflected ray, so the nature of reflected ray is nothing but what is it? Divergent. So I hope it will be clear to all of you, right? So let me quickly recap the ones about the optical image. So actually, uh, optical image where the it is actually the intersecting point of the reflected ray, or you can say refracted ray when you learn the refraction. But right now we are actually talking about the reflection. So we are just uh, stuck with the things like intersecting point of the reflected ray. Now, now the intersecting point may be real and may be virtual. So on the basis of that, we have actually two kinds of image, real image and the virtual image. So now when we describe the real image, so a real image is the image where actually the reflected ray has a real intersecting point. And in this case, the nature of reflected ray is actually convergent. On the other hand, the virtual image is actually an image where the intersecting point of the reflected ray is actually virtual. I hope you understand with the diagram as well. And the nature of the reflected ray is actually divergent. And let me write it here a noted point. So uh, anything, anything front of mirror is real, and behind the mirror is actually virtual. That means शीशे के सामने की जो दुनिया है वो रियल दुनिया है, एंड शीशे के जो पीछे की जो दुनिया है, सो इट विल बी टर्म्ड एज वर्चुअल. जैसे अगर खुद को अगर आप शीशे के सामने खड़े देखोगे, तो यू आर एक्चुअली एग्जिस्ट इन द रियल वर्ल्ड, बट योर one dimensions is actually exist in the mirror world, which you can saw from the real world. Like if you, like I'm talking about, if this is actually you and you are standing in front of mirror, so you actually look at yourself in the mirror, right? And you are in front of mirror, and whatever in front of mirror is actually real, and whatever behind the mirror is actually virtual. Somehow you exist in the mirror dimensions, which is actually virtually you. And जैसे ऐसा कह सकते हैं कि शीशे के सामने जो भी दुनिया है ना वो रियल है, एंड शीशे के पीछे की जो दुनिया है वो एक वर्चुअल वर्ल्ड है, राइट? दैट मीन्स यू आर समहाउ dimension. That means what I'm trying to say, that you are somehow exist in some other dimension as well, like that is actually the mirror dimensions, which is actually virtual, but yeah, you exist there, right? Now we are going to discuss about the image formations by the plane mirrors. So let's give a fresh heading here, image formations by plane mirror. So let's take a diagram first, and then we are actually discuss about the things one by one. So let us start drawing. first change the color. Let's take a straight line. Okay, that's fine. And let's draw a normal here with some different color. Let's take the red. We have to insert a, okay. So, okay, this is actually our normal. And the next thing we have to take is actually ray of light. So let take it from the white color. Let's take it from here. Okay. And again, insert the same ray from actually in this direction. And we have to draw certain images from like, let's take from here. Similarly, we have to draw it from here, right? And we have to again insert from here and it's reflected ray, right? You can take one or more array of light as well. So let's take the green color for the notation. Okay. So this is actually our plane mirror. Let me draw it here. So this is actually our plane mirror. Okay. And now what I'm trying to say here is this is actually our incident light. This is actually our reflected light. This is actually our incident light. And due to normal incident, ray of light retraces its path. We already covered this section. Okay. Now, this is actually termed as a regular reflex. Now, what I'm trying to do here is look at here one thing. Can I insert a dotted line if possible? Okay. I want to draw a dotted line. I think it's not possible. Okay. So let's take some next color to represent the images. Okay. Is it visible? Yeah, it is. So we have to just back extend these ray of light, right? So this is actually our image. This is actually our object, this point, because what is actually object? So the intersecting point of the incident light is actually termed as object, right? So this is actually our object. Let me take the green color because white is already in use. So, okay, so this is actually the intersecting point of the incident ray of light. So this is actually termed as object. And this is the actually intersection point of reflected ray, which is actually virtual intersection. So it will be termed as virtual image. The image is actually virtual. Why it is? Because the intersection point of the reflected ray is actually virtual. I hope it will be clear to all of you what I'm trying to say. The intersection point is actually virtual, so the image is actually virtual, right? Now, what I'm trying to do here is we have to find uh, like what are the things that happen during the uh, image formation by the plane mirror. So something we can derive here, and the things we have to notice is noted things during image formation by plane mirror. So you have to notice something during the image formation by plane mirror. So these are something. Let me write it here. So the first thing is that the line joining object to image is actually must be the perpendicular to the mirror. Let me write it here. Line joining object to image OI is perpendicular to mirror. The second thing that you have to note is actually distance of object from mirror is actually is equal to distance of image from mirror. What I'm trying to say is if you called as P, so that OP is equal to OI. The first thing you have to notice is the normal is actually perpendicular to the plane mirror. And the second thing you have to notice is the distance between the object and the plane mirror is equal to the distance between the object and the image. That means image is actually forming at the same distance from where you are standing away from the plane. So this is actually important. This is actually also important. And the third thing is plane mirror forms virtual images. Plane mirror forms virtual images of a real object and a real image of virtual object. That means what I'm trying to say here, the object is real because the intersecting point of the incident ray of light is actually real, right? So when the incident, that means the intersection point of the incident ray of light is actually real. So the object is real. So the plane mirror has a property uh, in actually image formation is that it form the real image of virtual object and virtual image of real object. So the object is actually real, so it forms the virtual image. So it forms its virtual image. Now, there's the things like image formation is actually independent of the size of mirror. The only things you have to matter is that the only condition is the object should be in front of mirror. Right. So let me write it here. The four things that you have to keep in mind is image formation is independent of size of mirror. Right. The fifth thing is the only conditions is object should be in front of, right? The only condition is the object should be in front of mirror. The rest of the things like size of mirror doesn't matter, just the object should be in front of that. Now the next thing that we are going to deal is field of view. So let's take me some other color. These are actually definitions kind of things, so you have to keep this thing in mind, and these are important as well. So the next thing that we have to deal is field of view. So what is actually field of view? So let me draw it here, or start drawing actually. Let's take some again other color. Okay, and let's take some normal from the other color. Okay, you can, and I'm assuming that look at here what I'm trying to say. Only this is actually the only plane mirror. The rest of the thing is doesn't exist. Okay, assume that. So now what I'm trying to do here is I am inserting a ray of light. Let's take from green color now. So what I'm gonna insert? I'm gonna insert here a ray of light in this way, and another ray of light in this way. Right. From same onward, we have to take the reflected ray of light. So it will be somehow like this. You can take it like this. You have to insert one more. This is actually the reflected ray of light for this. I hope it seems fine. Or you can do so. Maybe I can call it in some way like this. Like two of the rays are intersect each other, right? So now let me take it from the white color. Now what I'm trying to illustrate you is extend, why it is actually just extend backward the reflected ray. This is actually reflected ray, right? So when you do so, this is actually I'm assuming like this is actually our incident ray of light, and these are actually reflected ray of light. So this is actually termed as a field of view, or you can say if you put your eyes in this region, then you are able to actually uh, look the image, right? So let me write it here. So the reason in which all reflected rays, all reflected ray from mirror lies, or reason between extreme of reflected rays is actually termed as a field of view, right? And the next thing you can call it as like to see the image, observer eyes should be in field of view. Now let me quickly recap the things हमने क्या क्या चीजें cover करी. So something that you have to notice when you take the consideration of the image formation by the plane mirror. The first thing is that the line joining the object to the mirror is actually perpendicular. You see here, this line is actually perpendicular, right? The next thing is the distance between the object from the mirror to the image from the mirror is actually same. That means I'm going to tell you is like this is actually equal to this distance. The third thing is plane mirror actually forms the virtual image of the real object and the real image of the virtual object, right? So this is the thing that you have to keep in mind. If the object is real, the plane mirror forms its virtual image. If the object is virtual, so plane mirror forms its real image. The next thing is uh, image formation is actually independent of size of mirror. The only condition required is the object must be in front of the mirror. The next thing is field of view. So what is actually field of view? So field of view is the region where should be the observer side to look the image, right? So it is actually defined the region in which all reflected ray from mirror or the region between the extreme of reflected ray lies. And there is a condition to see the image, observer eyes should be in the field of view. And you all know that this distance is actually equal. So this is actually our object where the actually the real object, because incident ray of light has a real intersection point, and this is actually virtual. So this distance is actually equal to this, and this is actually our virtual image because plane mirror forms the virtual image of the real object, right? I hope it will be clear to all of you. So that's all for today. Today class is a little bit theoretical, and इसमें काफी definitions वगैरह हमें सीखने को मिली. So that's all for today's. In tomorrow's class, we are gonna deal with some problems first, and then we start the new concepts.